Howdy folks, now I've made it no secret I'm starting to get serious fatigue with these leaders debates now. They're just a bunch of children, aren't they? They're just virtue signalling, political point scoring, arguing over the top of each other, trying to show how virtuous they are. But there was one small segment in the hour and a half debate yesterday that I think was actually incredibly useful, and they managed to solve a problem that is huge in British politics right now and actually managed to find some level of agreement. Watch this.
Please raise your hand if you think the net level of legal migration, that is the additional number of people coming to the country to work and live, needs to fall. Please raise your hand. The number needs to fall.
What a sorry
Nigel
reflection.
Farage, Penny Mordaunt.
It's due to fall anyway.
Daisy Cooper, Angela Rayner.
The
Thank you very
Westminster
much.
status quo. That's the Westminster
No, it's not
status
at all.
quo. Of course
No,
it is.
no,
The
no,
four
Stephen
main
Flynn.
parties.
No, it isn't.
The four main
No, it isn't,
parties
Stephen.
all with the exact
I
same-
welcome immigration because I think that people come here and they're more likely to prop up our public services and work in our public services rather than they are to put a drain on our public services. So I welcome immigration in this country because they contribute to our public service. But the numbers are due to come down anyway. But I think part of the reason we have so many people coming here, and I welcome them when they do, is because we're not investing in our domestic workforce, and we can do both at the same time.
OK, thank you. There was some pretty strong language used towards Nigel Farage about dog whistle tours and scapegoat politics. What's your response to that,
I'm just
Nigel
talking
Farage?
numbers. We haven't even mentioned housing yet.
But could you respond to that point in
Oh, no, I
particular?
ignore that nonsense. Complete nonsense. I'm just talking pure facts. Housing. We have to build one new home every 2 minutes just to cope with legal net migration under this Conservative government. It is literally impossible. And as for the numbers coming in, I would respond to this. 50% of the 750,000 who are coming in a year are dependents. Our relative wealth has declined for the last 6 consecutive quarters.
I hear Nigel talking a lot about. I hear Nigel Farage talking a lot about dependence.
Facts.
The problem that we have in higher education now is that changes in visa requirements means that family members aren't able to come and study to accompany students to Welsh universities. That is causing major problems in terms of revenue for our higher education.
You shouldn't bring your mum. You come to university in Britain, you can't bring your mum, can you? I mean, come on.
We need people to come to study in our universities.
Thank
We rely on people from abroad to care for our loved ones. They should be able to bring their loved ones with them.
OK, thank you. I just want to turn to Angela Rayner, who's quite quiet here. You did raise your hand alongside Nigel Farage on that question. Angela Rayner.
Yeah, because the Tories, they talk about a cap, but we've had net migration going up and up because our economy has relied on overseas workers well, it's flatlining. But what we've said is that we need an industrial and skills strategy because we've got unemployment going up in the latest figures.
So
we've got to make sure...
years to come up with some ideas on this, and we have. We've got a workforce plan for the NHS. We've got a workforce plan for social care.
You don't have a workforce plan for social care.
It will inform a
You refuse
vote
to publish
on
one.
the floor.
Now, just as we cut away there, they started arguing again, but there was one nugget of something quite beautiful in my eyes. We had about a 1 minute segment where we had almost a perfect example of how people with opposing views can come together and actually resolve an issue. So the question was, who wants to bring migration down? Labour, Lib Dems, Reform, Tories all put their hand up. Now, forget the Tories for a minute, because the Tories have just built a country over the last 14 years that's completely dependent on immigration because they've cut public services, cut education, apprenticeships for youngsters. They're completely dependent on immigration. So forget that for a minute. But the three remaining parties, it was almost like a perfect example of how a PR-style coalition would work. Imagine if this was a Labour government in coalition with the Lib Dems and Reform, and they were talking about this issue of immigration. They all bring up their points, and they actually come to the glaringly obvious solution to bring immigration down, which is to train our youngsters. The Lib Dems and Labour both came out with this.
But we've had net migration going up and up because our economy has relied on overseas workers.
But I think part of the reason we have so many people coming here, and I welcome them when they do, is because we're not investing in our domestic workforce, and we can do both at the same time.
The reason immigration is so high is because the Tories cut the nursing bursaries. We used to train our British citizens for free to become nurses. Apprenticeships are just awful. Have you ever looked at a list of apprenticeships? I have a 18-year-old son at the moment. There's not decent apprenticeships in real quality jobs, sales, marketing, media work. It's rubbish. The solution to bring immigration down is to stop neglecting our youngsters. Give them good quality apprenticeships. I know a lot of people are dubious about bringing tuition fees down back to free, but at least you need to make doctors and nurses tuition fees free. I'd even go as far as engineering and really important sectors that we need. This is the glaringly obvious solution to bring down immigration. Now, the two other extremes to this argument is obviously Nigel Farage and the SNP. I disagree with probably 90% of what Farage is talking about, but in a way you kind of need him there barking at certain things, and he does bring up points that you can't really ignore. Housing, 700,000 net migration last year. Do we have 700,000 houses? Can we afford to bring in family members for students? Now, I totally understand if we're bringing you over here to work, you should bring your wife and your kids, of course, but there's a conversation to be had about students. And then the other opposite end of the spectrum is the SNP's opinion, which is we need vast amounts more of immigration. Now, this is where I sit. Of course you need to bring in immigration if you have gaps in the labour market, but when you have a country that has 300,000 of its citizens homeless on the street, when you're a country that has 500,000 youth unemployed, these issues need to be addressed. We have 300,000 of our citizens homeless on the streets that could become incredibly productive members of society if we just gave them the help that they need to battle their addictions, battle their mental health problems, get them back on their feet. 500,000 youth unemployed because what options are available to them? Saddle themselves with debt at university? Take some crappy apprenticeship in social media? These issues need to be addressed first before you start pumping migrant workers into the country. Now, I'm not naive to think that this is a quick fix. Obviously, a massive programme of investment in apprenticeships, free tuition fees is a long-term goal. It will take 5-10 years to come into fruition, so we will still need high levels of immigration. And this is where I vastly disagree with Nigel Farage with this bonkers net zero, one in, one out policy from reform. We have massive labour shortages. We have massive shortages of staff in the NHS. We need to fill those vacancies, and it will take time, like I just said, to train our youngsters to do this, which is ironically why the SNP are calling for more immigration, because in Scotland they already have these things. Tuition fees are free in Scotland. But yeah, the majority of the hour and a half was absolute awful arguing, but there was this one minute segment which was quite beautiful in my eyes. They all came together and found a solution for this problem from different opposing views. You got Farage barking, rah, 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 SNP on the other side, and it's kind of a solution appears in the centre of the obvious solution for immigration, which is to start rapidly training our youngsters to do these jobs. Now, this appears to be the Labour policy going forward. I don't know how much trust I have in it. I have hope more than trust. I don't think they won't go as far as free tuition fees for doctors and nurses. This seems like such an obvious thing to do and would massively help the labour shortages that we have in the NHS. If we had these opportunities for our youngsters to train to become nurses for free, doctors for free. You know, there's a lot of talk about pay rises for junior doctors. If they haven't got debt rattled around their neck, that would be a big positive. So I did have a conversation with a YouTuber called Angrybootneck on immigration from two opposing sides of the political spectrum. It was interesting. We disagreed on a lot, but we came to a lot of common ground. If you want to check out that video, I'll put the link down below. It's on the Absolute Bedlam YouTube channel. But the one important thing to take from this, and the one bit of good news, is we all hate the Tories and we all want the Tories out. Penny Mordaunt was awful. They're god-awful. We've had 14 years of hell. I think generally everyone agrees on that, which is one bit of good news. And yeah, if you like the video, click a like. If you haven't subscribed, you can subscribe up top. There'll be another video, and check that out as well. What was your thoughts? Please let me down below. Did you think there was a decent nugget of information there out of a torrent of abuse? Let me know.
But what we've said is that we need an industrial and skills strategy, because we've got unemployment going up in the latest figures.
You've
so
had
we've got to make sure
years to come up with some ideas on this, and we have. We've got.